If I went to the site and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, it's not active anymore. Not going to sign up. I think this newsletter is just too broad for me.
Not a great user experience personally. And I might be like, I'm not getting value for this. I'm unsubscribing.
I hope we didn't roast you too hard here. I think there's some opportunities here. Hello, and welcome back to the Growth in Reverse podcast. I'm Chenell.
And I'm Dylan.
And today we're going to be roasting another newsletter. I almost said podcast because this one is actually about podcasts.
We're roasting a podcast about podcasts.
Roasting a newsletter about podcasts.
Thank you. Yes. And we're roasting a newsletter about podcasts on a podcast where we both write newsletters.
Yes. So fun.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar, we actually do these roasts every so often. They're super fun. We essentially pull up the newsletter, subscribe, and just see what opportunities we find. And if you want to get your own newsletter roasted, you can go to growthinreverse.com/roasts and submit your newsletter to be roasted on the podcast.
And we give more priority to the people who have submitted a review for our podcast or who have rated it. So you just have to share a quick screenshot showing that you've done one of those things and you'll have a better chance of being roasted.
Yes, we are building a flywheel, hoping that people will finally review this podcast. And that's our way to do it.
Someday. We might hit 30 by the end of the year.
Yes.
30 reviews.
Love it.
The author of this newsletter is a gentleman named Sebastian. I believe he's Canadian. I did a little bit of digging and he started Find the Pod a while ago. He's been listening to podcasts since like 2005. So he's a huge podcast fan. So this is more of a passion project than a main revenue business. He also has an agency that he runs. So put that just as context to this. So he started Find That Pod a few years back, and I believe he's got close to 15,000 subscribers. So he submitted his newsletter for roasting on the podcast about a newsletter about podcast. It's just, I'm so confused already. He also started a website called findthatpod.com. So that is where my guess is he's driving most of his traffic. And then he's got an embedded Beehive page or an embedded Beehive form.
All right.
Right there.
Wait, I have questions. Hold on.
Ask.
So did he just launch on Beehive recently? Like to switch over?
That's a good question.
Because I only see 4 posts here. So if I'm going to this, I see like number 310, but then I only see 4 of them. So I'm curious about that.
It's possible.
I'd love to at least see 6, but that's okay. I do like this logo here. Mm-hmm. It's fun. Mm-hmm. I'm enjoying that. I feel like I remember this newsletter from a while ago, and it did not look like this. So kudos on the design.
There you go. What was the oldest issue there?
307.
307. That was April.
From April 11th.
11th. Okay. I'm just going to go really quickly into my inbox because I started subscribing to this a while ago when we were looking at different newsletters to roast. And I want to see if there's editions that were older than that.
Okay, so this is
April.
fun. So I went to findthatpod.com and then I go to the archive, and the first one is 163 from May 2022.
Okay.
If they are driving people here, we might want to like get some more recent ones going, because I would see this. If I went to the site and I saw this, I'd be like, oh, it's not active anymore. I'm not going to sign up.
Oh, wait, but sorry, you're on the website. I had tapped away.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves though, maybe.
No, they're both archive questions. So I figured I'd call that out.
Okay.
There's no organization to these, Dylan. They just come as they come through. Okay.
We just go down the rabbit holes that present themselves to us.
So did you find an older email, and was it sending from Beehive?
No, I subscribed March 31st. So
okay.
Yeah. So I don't unfortunately have the data. What could be happening here is maybe just because of fear of, I don't know, Google SEO sort of punishment. Maybe he's only posting a few editions on his Beehive page and then trying to host most of the content on his website. So
I would still argue to put at least 6 or just 3.
Yeah, that 4 is kind of awkward, but
it's a white space here. But small potatoes, this is a bigger issue for me. I would want to pull in, at least get the top like 8 or so being recent.
Yeah, those are 2022.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I'll go back to the homepage. So it's always good to click through some links that people would click through and see what goes on.
Totally. Okay, quick roast on the landing page.
This is a really big logo. I like the logo, but okay. There are over 4 million podcasts. Find the best ones. Yeah, I think this newsletter is just too broad for me. I don't know. I like business, entrepreneurship, nerdy podcasts, but I also like running podcasts, and I also like gardening podcasts. So I don't know. I feel like there should be some segmentation of like kind of podcasts.
Well,
are we
maybe
talking?
when you subscribe, you will be presented with those options. Why don't you subscribe and find out?
Let's do it. I'm also a big fan of like making the box big enough so that your whole email can show, or at least like the common length. Wisdom Project, Creators Toolbox. So these are all sponsored.
Do you have an ad blocker?
I do.
Okay, so on mine, I don't on my browser. And so one thing that happened was he's got a footer, kind of a banner footer ad that popped up. And at 100% zoom on my browser, and that's a Chrome browser on Windows, just Sebastian, if you're listening, I couldn't even see that continue maybe later and powered by Beehive badge, because your AdSense, your Google AdSense ad covered all that. I had to zoom out on my browser to be able to basically click out of it. So that's one thing that I would call out is, I don't know how much money those AdSense pages are or ads are driving, but I'd maybe choose one or the other, because it's not a great experience having that basically being advertised to twice and not even be able to get out of one of the ads. So not a great user experience personally.
I want to like turn off my ad blocker so I can see it, but I think this is going to close.
Yeah, it probably will.
I'm going to try it.
Yeah. Womp womp.
All right. Well, let's do it again. See what happens.
Is the ad blocker off?
You are already subscribed. Yeah. Huh. It doesn't happen for me. Okay. So where do we go? Thank you for subscribing. You get your first email from ask you to do two things, reply and drag it to, okay. Yeah. I think there's some opportunities here. What do you think?
I think this is a great place to queue people up for a Right Message survey, a Google Form survey, or something like, right?
Yep.
Like most people see your welcome email, but pretty much everybody's going to see your thanks for subscribing page. Every subscriber, not even every subscriber sees your welcome email for whatever reason. They might just never see it. But everybody who subscribes will see this, right? So this is where I would queue you up. Like you have Chenell, you've got a survey on your thank you page. Lots of people have also followed suit with that strategy, and that's where I would try to start segmenting people. What kind of podcast do you like? What's your favorite podcast? Even if it's like a field that they enter that's manual and it's harder to kind of take people on it, just having that data I think would be helpful. Especially with ChatGPT these days, you could probably feed it some data and it would be able to sort the information for you. But at the very least, you could like have some drop downs or some radio buttons, like categorize, like what types of podcasts do you enjoy? Business, marketing, finance, sports, fantasy football, gardening.
Beehive has surveys integrated naturally, I think, too. So this should be something you could do like today. Exactly. Even if this is like my biggest thing is people are always like, well, it takes so long to set it up. And then I have to set up sequences. I'm like, just collect data, start collecting, do the rest later. It doesn't have to be like a huge project right now, but if you have the data, you can use it later. If you don't, it's going to be a lot harder.
Exactly.
The other thing you can do, I mean, this isn't all lost, right? He could send out a survey today to people and say, what are your favorite podcasts? How often do you listen to podcasts? That kind of thing. Yeah. So I think that could be huge, actually, not even just in terms of readers enjoying your newsletter moving forward, but also like subscriber or like sponsorships and that kind of thing. You can be like, hey, 60% of my email list listens to finance podcasts. And then people with podcasts that want to maybe advertise in this could.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that's a huge thing.
I'm sure Sebastian's thought of this. It might just be one of those things like, yeah, I've been meaning to get to it and I never have. Maybe this is the kick in the pants that he needs to get to it. But that was my whole point, is like, not every newsletter is monetizing with ads and sponsorships. So they may not need that data. If you're just running a paid newsletter with subscription, then you don't maybe necessarily care about segmenting. But I would argue that data is going to be helpful for you. At the very least, people will subscribe to your newsletter, not fill out the survey, and just move on. You can always incentivize people to fill it out. I just think it's going to be so much more helpful for you. And as a user experience of somebody who loves listening to podcasts like I do, and I've tried finding more podcasts in and around the same sphere of podcasts I like listening to, I feel like this tool would be super helpful. Once we get into the actual newsletter, I feel like there's some missed opportunities there as well.
Yeah. And even like, so for, if you're just listening to this, we have the whole thing going screen share on YouTube.
Yeah, go check it out.
I just opened up his sponsorship page, which goes to a passion fruit page, which I feel like there's a big opportunity here, like to have another box. So there's a box that says top locations, 50% are from the US, 13 Canada, et cetera. But you could also have like industries or podcast types or something, because like us as podcasters, like how do I know that 90% of the people listening enjoy I don't know, jewelry podcast or something random. And like, I wouldn't spend, $150 on this if I don't know who is in the audience. So I think I just want to drive that home even more. So just showcasing where that data could live.
I think one other thing I want to mention is I compared this to a newsletter that you'd send out saying, find that TV show, right? When you and I were talking about this before. And it's like, that is so broad, right? There's so many different kinds of shows. There's so many different types of podcasts. It's just a medium of content consumption, right? So I think you need to think about this more like somebody who's trying to find TV shows to watch. What type of TV shows, right? Podcasts, yes, you just listen to them. I mean, technically that's, they're just consumed that way, but there's so many different types of podcasts, even whether they're live or interview or like true crime, like, highly produced shows. So I think that to me is the way to approach this. And of course, if you're trying to find advertisers for HBO versus advertisers for CNN, you're going to have two very different types of people. And so you wouldn't want to send them an email saying, hey, CNN listener or viewer, check out all these HBO shows, right? Yes, there's going to be some overlap, but why not segment those viewers, those listeners better?
Well, and also you already have these lists built out, which is great. So again, if you're just listening, he has a bunch of best podcast lists.
But there's a good one, right?
Yeah, I know. We're not going to say that because we're going to get demonetized.
Yeah.
Best car podcast, best self-improvement podcast. And so I think if you had that survey on the page right after someone subscribes, their first email could give them like great content like this. Like, oh, you like outdoors. Here are the list of the best outdoor podcasts that I found. Huge. I think that could go such a long way in terms of retaining subscribers.
Yep.
And I have to wonder, like, I'd be curious to ask Sebastian, like offline, like how many people he's gotten to subscribe and how many end up unsubscribing or just like get him unsubscribing them because they're not opening.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel customized unless, who knows, maybe on the back end, he's kind of seeing what people click and then basing it off of that. Could be.
Yeah.
That could work too.
That's one thing you could do if you didn't want to go the form or the survey route, what he could do is in that first email, he could just have like a list of here's the best. He probably has some data, right? He's had this website for a while. He probably has some data of what pages rank higher or what pages get viewed more and that sort of thing. So he could take the top 5 of those, right? And put those in his welcome email and say, check out the best. And then he lists his top 5. And then people are basically voting on which type of podcast they want to listen to by just clicking on those links. So it's kind of like a user directed survey, right? And it can give you additional data too.
Yeah. So I navigated to the best family podcast lists and there's a form on here and I'm going to subscribe on this page with a slightly different email and see if he sends me. So this is a Mediavine page. So those ads you saw were probably through Mediavine. It's a company that helps put on different dynamic ads and that kind of thing. But they also have this tool called Grow. It like dynamically inserts like email forms throughout your content. But now it's making me create a login here. But I don't like this because it goes to Mediavine's properties. It eventually goes to him too, but I think
they get your data.
Do better. Yeah, he would do better just having this be his own forms, I believe. Just in my opinion. Yeah, so I was gonna subscribe to that just to see if he started sending me more like family-based podcast recommendations. Right. So I guess we'll find out in a few days. But
yeah, everything we're saying too is with the caveat of we're not sure 100% if he is already doing this strategy based on click habits and behavior.
The other thing that could be interesting, just for getting data, like what podcast platform do you listen on? One of the things I always struggle with is like, I hear about this cool episode of a podcast and then I go to find it and they don't give me the right links for me to find it either on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever. So then I'm like, now I have to sit down and like search it. And there's just a huge point of friction for me to find that episode. Sure, this is a lot of work, but I think for the nature of this kind of content, it would be helpful for him to set up like a back-end way to dynamically show them the Spotify link to that podcast or the Apple Podcast link and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that'd be super helpful. I love that.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, once we get into the email, you'll see that he does provide those options, but he provides all of them for every single episode that's recommended. So yeah, could be an improvement there too.
So Find That Pod episode 310. This went out on May 2nd. So about a week ago, a little less than a week ago. So at the top, it is the logo and then want to be a famous podcast. Oh, wait, become famouser. Grab more. Okay. So this is an ad, right? Pod pitch. It's a long ad.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then it kind of just like segues into welcome to the 310th edition.
Thoughts? Just stop pausing right there.
Oh,
Thoughts on having the ad
yeah.
first under the logo and then having the welcome?
I mean, to each their own. I feel like some people do this okay. But yeah, I mean, you're kind of giving up the bulk of your attention to an advertiser,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know. And then it's kind of hard to see like where it ends and where the email begins. There's no like separator.
Keep scrolling. What I like to see personally, and I know it's been done, he could have Pod Pitch's logo next to his in the top header and say in partnership with Pod Pitch, right? And you've done that. Lots of people have done that. And then that at least gets the logo in front of, so the satisfies the advertiser, gets the logo there. Then you have your welcome intro. So people will see that right away. That's what they're here for. They're not here for your advertisement. And then you can put the ad underneath. At least then people kind of can see what the newsletter is about. And then they'll scroll. Chances are they're going to keep scrolling anyway. And it's not going to get confused with the ad. The welcome part is not going to get confused with the ad.
And this is a seemingly relevant ad, although...
Well, is it?
Yeah, I mean, it's going... So it's for people who want to get on podcasts.
Yeah. So we're confused. Yeah. We're conflating B2B podcasts with B2C, right? So there's people who consume podcasts only, and there's people who go on podcasts and may also consume, right? I think you and I are both consumers and people who go on podcasts. So this would be relevant for us. But just because we're reading about our favorite podcast doesn't mean we're going to want to go onto podcasts. Yeah. So
it's definitely going to be a small segment, but I'm curious to hear how this goes for him.
Once we get to the bottom too, I'll just put a pin in that because when we get to the bottom, you'll see in the footer talks about podcast industry news. And I think there's an opportunity to maybe branch out having a B2B style version of Find That Pod, where it's more focused on that sort of stuff. That's where Pod Pitch would make more sense to me.
Yeah, it would make sense. And it would be cool to have him include like the sponsor in here somewhere too with like a star for people who scrolled past it. Okay, interesting. Let's keep going. Yeah. All right, so welcome to the 310th edition. This week I've got another boatload of podcast discovery resources. So these are probably, he's building these new pages and sharing them with people. Oh, this is interesting. So he's doing the SEO type play of like, find all the keywords that probably people are searching for.
Popular
like
podcasts.
Yeah. Best seasons of, and then reviews. I don't hate that strategy if the lists are valuable and actually like that podcast.
Yep.
Because, I mean, as someone who listens to like My Favorite Murder is a good true crime, or not true crime. Yeah, I guess it would be podcast. Look for similar ones. I don't often like them, but sometimes I do. So,
like, did you listen to Serial?
I did listen to Serial. Yeah. That was a good one. And then I wonder if he links over to like his best true crime. Does he have best true crime podcast list? No. All right. Well, that's interesting because it feels like some of these are crime based, right?
Yeah.
Maybe not. This is a good podcast, by the way. Sounds like a cult.
Oh,
it's pretty funny.
Go check it out.
Yeah, petty like crimes, detectives, just So I feel like it could be something like that. Anyway, down the rabbit hole. Okay, are you a podcaster?
So we have another ad.
So this is like his own ad.
Yeah, but like to book an ad. So we've got 3 sections already. 2 of them are more kind of self-fulfilling for him than for the reader. So really like big asks, kind of draining some value out of your reader by doing that, in my opinion.
Oh, here's another ad too.
Yeah, exactly. Which is okay in this sense because it looks like the rest of his recommendations throughout the edition. But he does have the word advertisement above it. Obviously, somebody's paid to get their podcast in this list.
Yeah. The other thing I'm noticing here, so this is get on a podcast. So you're probably a podcaster if you have a business. This is also, are you a podcaster? So far from like the beginning to 25% of the way through is like mostly for B2B style stuff. Whereas like if I'm just a consumer consuming podcasts, like this is not relevant to me.
Yeah.
This are you a podcaster is not relevant to me. Maybe this is, I don't know. It's just like another podcast, but yeah, like where does this go? Oh, so they're, okay. All right. That's not bad. Yeah. And then is this like technology for podcasts or is this like a technology
this
podcast?
is, so that's the categories. So as you'll go down, you'll see there's a technology one. I think there's a family one. Oh, never mind. We got a classified ad first.
Another ad.
Yeah. There's technology.
Wait, so there's 2 technologies. Okay.
Correct.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I'm looking at this, I'm kind of curious what it looks like on mobile because these are huge ads.
I thought the same thing.
Like huge
images, right?
Artwork.
It feels like a long scroll, way longer than it necessarily needs to be. And not that that's a bad thing, but some people just like see that scroll sidebar and be like, whoa, I've got to scroll through a lot of this. I don't have time for this. And they might just bounce without even going through it.
It looks okay on mobile, but on desktop, it takes up the entire thing, which is wild.
So one thing I do like is the not sure where to start with this episode. So he gives you like a recommendation.
Yes.
So I like that he's pointing you to a specific one, because otherwise we kind of like, do I do the most recent or do I have to start from the beginning? Is this like a serialized or what's the word?
Yeah, that's right.
You know what I mean, right?
Like an episodic
where you
versus
where you'd want to listen from episode 1 through. Yeah.
Right. Go in order.
A series.
There you go.
There's a history section. So as you can see, like as you're scrolling through there, histories for weirdos. So then we've had 2 technologies. We have a history section. But like, what if I don't give 2, what's about history podcasts or technology podcasts? I want something that's in the family space or the outdoor space or the traveling space or whatever that might be. Then this whole newsletter has kind of been a waste of my time. I hate to be harsh, but I might be like, I'm not getting value for this. I'm unsubscribing.
Definitely. Every podcast ever featured in Find That Pod.
Yeah, okay. I was going to call that out too.
That's like,
I don't want 1,300 podcasts.
That's the best. Okay, so if you're listening, so his referral giveaway, it says you currently have 0 referrals, only 1 away from receiving every podcast ever featured in Find That Pod. And then in parentheses, it says over 1,300 podcasts. So it's essentially a database of all of them, which could work. But again, like this is where I think it's more valuable if you know what they like listening to, because you can say, hey, do you want to get every history podcast I've ever featured? Mm-hmm. And I'd be like, yeah, that's cool. Like, I want to know. But every single one ever feels like, I don't know that I would want that.
No, if there's no way to filter through those, categorize them or anything, then that would just too overwhelming for me.
And then there's another ad for booking an ad with Find That Pod, which again, like, I can see the business model here, and I understand that that's what he's trying to do, which I get. It just feels like a lot, especially if someone isn't a podcaster. So maybe you only show those if they're a podcaster. That's another filter you could have. And then you can have dynamic blocks in there to showcase those, which is kind of interesting. Mm-hmm.
Can you do that on Beehive?
I don't know. Would hope so. Like with Liquid Code, can you use Liquid on Beehive?
I don't know.
Oh, and let's see. Dun, 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 dun. Yes, you can.
Okay.
So yeah, you can use Liquid Code, which is complicated as anything, but you can use ChatGPT and it'll essentially write it for you, which is great. But you could say like, if they have a tag of podcaster, show them this block in the middle in every email. If they don't show that, because then it's like kind of taking up space, making them probably a little slightly annoyed.
Yeah.
But no, I think this is great. 15,000 subscribers is pretty cool. And especially because it said like 50% open rate. Where did I see that?
That was on the advertise with us page, right?
47 to 52. So that's not bad. I mean, 5 to 7% click-through rate's okay. Although the whole basis of the newsletter is here's something, go click and listen to it. I would want to see that a little higher, but it's not bad.
That means so 15,000 sends, say 7,500 people open. What's 5% of that would be 350, 375 kind of thing. Because 10% would be
375. Wow, look at you.
Well, 10% would be 750. So just cut that in half. Usually don't do public math. I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, good job.
So yeah, I agree. Like you'd probably want to see a higher number. And I think that number would go up if you segmented these a little bit better.
But overall, I mean, I think it's a good idea. I think there is a need. I don't think I have this need, but I feel like a lot of people are looking for more podcasts. Mm-hmm. I think I'm overwhelmed with podcasts at this point. Yeah. But if I do hear someone recommend one, I will listen to one.
Yeah. Maybe that's what could be interesting content wise. Like if we get into content, like if he could interview people or just like, even just do like a DM, like to somebody somewhat well-known, be like, hey, what's your favorite podcast? What podcast do you listen to? What's currently on your podcast player right now that's like queued up to listen to? Like, I think that could be really interesting.
This makes me think of, okay, so I've been thinking about how I can build a business like, oh no, what is it called? Raycast. Okay. So Raycast is essentially a text shortener. It lets you put in like shortcuts to websites, and you can, like for me, I can hit command left arrow and it'll make the screen like half the size take up only the left side of the screen like that.
Okay. So
super fun.
It's an app?
It's an app. However, their marketing is brilliant. So they have a YouTube channel and they essentially will interview top technology folks in the space. I'm pulling it up for you so you can see.
Okay.
So they'll interview like what's in Jenna's Raycast, or what's in. And these are like nerdy tech people who have big audiences that like they go so deep into the product.
Right.
It's fun.
Right.
So I'm wondering if he could do something like this where what are Dylan's favorite podcasts? And then he interviews you and you talk through them. And like, it's just, that's fun.
Yeah.
I think that would be super cool.
That would be, or even like, what's your like shameless or guilty pleasure podcast, or you know what I mean? Like, like what are you, what would people be surprised that you're listening to?
Totally.
I think those kinds of, that kind of thing would be really cool and really interesting. And again, this is a side project as far as I can tell from Sebastian. So he may not have the bandwidth to do that. But hey, maybe somebody else listening wants to take that on and could try it. It could be fun to do. The other thing that I was going to say about this, have you heard of podcastnotes.org?
I feel like I have.
Okay.
I have to go to it and see.
It is a similar vibe. And forgive me, Sebastian, if you kind of are shaking your head like madly at me saying, no, mine's totally different. I don't mean to conflate what you guys do, but they're both podcast websites and they summarize podcasts to some degree. I think Podcast Notes is more about episodic summaries as opposed to actual podcast show summaries. So where Sebastian is kind of summarizing what this whole podcast is about, this one's more of like, hey, here's the latest notes on Andrew Huberman's podcast, right? Like here's what he covered. And here's like basically an AI generated summary of the episode. So what I would do is, Sebastian, if you have not heard of podcastnotes.org, go check it out, because I think they're doing a lot of good things. They have 70,000 subscribers. I would maybe look to them as an idea of what to do. I wouldn't say you guys are in direct competition with each other. In fact, I think you probably be complementary kind of businesses to one another. So I think there could be some ideas you could glean from this website. Also,
if the founder or someone who works at Podcast Notes is listening, you should have more women and people of different backgrounds on your homepage. Okay, bye. Okay. Thank you. That is crazy. Anyway, I just kept scrolling. I was like, white dude. Oh, okay.
There's Jillian Michaels
being interviewed by Joe Rogan.
Yeah,
okay.
COVID lies. So also in the white dude category of content.
Sorry. Anyway. But yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I think there is room to, I don't know if collaborate's the right word, but do something.
I don't even know.
This.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking collaboration. I was just thinking of like, look what they're doing and get some ideas. Because I think what they're doing, like that side pop out's kind of annoying, but look at that lead magnet, right? That's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I only have to look at 31 podcasts.
Exactly, as opposed to 1,300. So, and then they've got the free when you join over 70,000 other subscribers. So you could have that call to action. I think actually that might be something maybe that you're missing in the homepage. If we're just going back to that, is I don't think you mentioned the size of the podcast. And I think social proof and credibility, I've written about this recently. I think that's pretty important. And that can be a powerful sort of like subconscious signal to people that, oh, other people are enjoying this. I probably will then as well if 15,000 other people are. So I think you could probably include that there, and maybe some testimonials too, using Senja potentially as a easy tool to do it.
Yeah.
And are we on there? Did you search the Growth and Verse podcast to see if
I did not. Where do I search? Is it just all of these?
No, I don't think so.
I don't even know what would be under business.
Maybe. I found a search button there you
here.
Go.
Uh-oh. We are not. We haven't made it yet.
Well, Lewis House and Patrol might have slightly larger podcasts than we do. So
just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little.
Nice. Well, this is fun. I think there's a ton of ideas here. I hope we didn't roast you too hard here, Sebastian. I think there's some opportunities and we just like showcasing those for you.
And I love this as like a passion project. If you go to his About page. Oh, actually, maybe that was one other thing I wanted to call out too in the welcome email and elsewhere. There's no real personality behind this. And I thought maybe
we didn't do the welcome email.
No, we didn't. I thought he was trying to be very anonymous. Like I wasn't sure at first if this was a man or a woman who was publishing this. But then I saw, I think in one of the articles, it had the name. And so you click on the name and it says Sebastian's story, why he started the website and stuff like that. So in the welcome email, you'll see, I don't think you have it pulled up there on the screen.
I didn't get it. I'm looking to see if it comes through. I did not get it.
In the welcome email, he does mention to hit reply and say hi, but there's no face, there's no name, there's no introduction of him and why. So I think there's an opportunity there to...
Wait, I got it.
There you go. I think there's a huge opportunity to kind of like personalize this, humanize this a bit more. People don't really respond to faceless brands very well, or at least they're not really eager to. So I would put your name. It doesn't seem like you're trying to hide yourself with the fact that you have a page with your picture, and that's just there I
Yeah.
think
I'd be curious how many people actually click on Mastodon or
Yeah.
Facebook.
Yeah.
But maybe. I feel like Facebook's coming back. We'll have to talk about this in another episode.
Just like Substack's coming back, right?
That'll be another episode too. But yeah, because it doesn't say like, you say connect with me, but like, who's me?
Exactly. There's tons of opportunity to put your name in here, introduce yourself. I think even just like the story of why you're doing this, like that shows that you have the passion. Like if you click through on his website and you click on his name in his articles, you'll see it should have a written by, maybe on the Beehive side. There he is. So like I said, he writes all about himself. He's not trying to be anonymous. So why not put your face in your name? Don't have to even put your face, just put your name in the newsletter, introduce yourself, and give a quick, like, I've been binging podcasts before it was cool. I love all these different types of podcasts, and here's why I started Find That Pod. I think that would be more compelling than just, hit reply, connect with me.
Yeah, it'd be fun to have like a picture of you from like 20 years ago, like with headphones on, like sitting somewhere. If you have
I like that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah. Little time capsule.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be cool.
This was fun. I enjoyed this. I hope this was helpful. And again, if you want to get your podcast roasted, if you want to get your newsletter roasted, go to growthinreverse.com/roasts. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you in another episode of Roast That Newsletter.
Dun, dun, dun. Flames, fire, roasts. Yes.
Flames. All right. Well, until next time, we'll see you then.